Hello, everybody. So today, you already know, I'm going to be reviewing a book I read on Sunday called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. So a little bit of background. Dale Carnegie was a famous public speaker, orator. He was very interested in psychology and how humans operate, how we influence and interact with one another. He worked with a lot of very famous people, and he basically compiled, over the course of his life, he compiled many stories and anecdotes of people putting his ideas into practice about how to win friends and influence people. And a friend recently recommended it to me, so I got the audiobook and I read it, and boy howdy was it amazing. It was pretty incredible stuff. I had seen this book everywhere. It's always on a shelf. It's always in chapters. It's always in a bookstore. And anytime I'd seen it, I had thought, man, it just seems so manipulative, like how to win friends and influence people. That just sounds like manipulation. And it kind of is, but Carnegie makes the point that it is slightly different because hopefully you are implementing these concepts in a constructive and positive way. Hopefully you're not using them to get what you want, and you're using them to, well, I mean, you can use them to get what you want, but you're also using them not in a backhanded and manipulative way, and you're not trying to cause harm. You're just trying to improve your social interactions. So yeah, there's the intro essentially. And I've written some notes because there was a lot to process. So the first lesson, and basically the first 3 chapters of the book, deal with do not criticize other people. Try and see the best in them. And he talks about Lincoln. He talks about other presidents. He talks about Charles Schwab, who was the first man in America to be paid $1 million a year. And he basically went to all of these influential people. He talked to these people. He figured out sort of their secrets. He read a lot of Lincoln's personal letters and correspondence to different people, and came up with this idea of do not criticize people. It never works. And so his concept, his idea about criticizing people is, as soon as I criticize you, you are going to disagree. You're going to argue. We become on opposite sides of this disagreement or whatever. And because of that, it becomes immovable. Once you have an argument, that's it. It's over. I'm not going to change my views. You're not going to change your views. So if you don't criticize people, and you almost ignore the stuff that they do that's really annoying, and the stuff that they screwed up on, and just focus on the good stuff, you can get so much more done. And he's really pragmatic. And so what I mean by pragmatic is, Carnegie talks about at the end of the day, there is a goal that needs to be achieved. There is an outcome that has to happen. There is a thing that has to be produced. There's a job to be done. And if you want to get that done, you have to follow this advice, and you have to basically understand how people operate. And he has this really good example of Abraham Lincoln during the Civil War. One of his generals, I think the general's last name was Holt, nearly captured Robert E. Lee, the commanding general of the other side. And Lincoln wrote to Holt and said, go now, go catch this guy. He's trapped between these 2 parts of a river. You can get him. And Holt made all these excuses, and he was no, I can't do it. It's not going to be good. We don't have the manpower. But he made lots of excuses. And so Lee escaped. And Lincoln wrote this letter, and Lincoln was kind of known, very famously, apparently, for being very statesmanlike, never losing his temper, always sort of focusing on the good, never really criticizing anyone. Honest Abe, he had all of these perceptions about him. So they found this letter that he wrote to Holt, and it's basically you, sir, are ridiculous, and you have prolonged the war, and your failure to capture Lee has resulted in an absolute catastrophe for our side of the war, and all of this stuff. But Lincoln never sent this letter. It was never sent to Holt. Holt never received this letter in his whole life. This letter was found in Lincoln's papers after Lincoln had died. Um, and basically, basically Carnegie makes the assumption that maybe Lincoln read that letter and just thought, what is this going to achieve? What is this going to do? That I like call this general out. I tell him he's an idiot. I tell him that he made a stupid mistake that's going to prolong the war. It's going to like hurt a lot of people, like all of this stuff. He's like, what's the point? Like Holt's going to resign. It's going to look bad. It's going to make our side just look weak because like the president is criticizing one of the top generals. And so Lincoln was just like, nah, whatever. And essentially just focused on the good and eventually, won. And Lincoln's reputation today is probably like one of the greatest presidents of the United States. So that's sort of the first lesson that Carnegie has. And just basically like, don't criticize people because like, what are you trying to achieve? Are you trying to make them feel bad? Are you trying to make them angry? Are you trying to make them defend why they did what they did? That's all irrelevant. Like it's happened. It's in the past, move on. And that's basically what Carnegie says is like, you got to move on. You got to like, the past is gone, learn from your mistakes, learn from other people's mistakes, but criticizing people, it's a waste of time, which I really agree with. Like having read it, it made so much sense. He used a lot more examples and stuff. So if you're not sold on how I've explained it, like go read the first 3 chapters because that's great. Lesson 2 is where do you get your sense of importance? Ego is dangerous. And so he basically said like people just really want to feel important. And so if you can make somebody feel important in what they do, and it's genuine, you're not supposed to like blow smoke up someone's butt, but you are supposed to make them feel important, make them feel listened to. And it's essentially like you can catch more flies with honey than with vinegar. And again, I gotta say, I really believe this. I really like this because it makes so much sense. Like everybody wants to feel like they belong. Everyone wants to feel like they're heard. And so he said, even if you're going to like a store clerk or something, like say their name, like remember their name, be really kind, make them feel important, ask them about their opinions and their judgment. And you will be surprised at how influential and how positive an impact you can make, which I really love. That Charles Schwab guy, I think there's like a bank. I think he went off and started a bank because I've heard of Charles Schwab as a bank. But Charles Schwab, first man in America to make $1 million. Carnegie like quoted him, and Charles Schwab once said, "I consider my ability to encourage enthusiasm in the people around me my greatest asset." And so Schwab was like apparently like a pretty humble guy, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm the first person to make $1 million a year, but honestly, the people I work with are way smarter than me. The thing that I have that's special is I can encourage enthusiasm in the people around me." And apparently like Charles Schwab, apparently like he could remember like 10,000 names. He never forgot a name. He never forgot a person's story. He was always so charismatic, so understanding, never criticized his employees, never criticized his staff. And sort of that's what Schwab himself accredited a lot of his success to. So I just wrote that quote down because I thought it was good. Oh yeah, you know how I was talking about like you don't want to be just like when you're trying to make someone feel important, you're not just trying to like blow smoke up their butt, you're trying to like appreciate. Carnegie said that the difference between appreciation, which is good, and flattery, which is bad, is that one is sincere and one is insincere. And so flattery, you don't actually mean it. You're just like, you're trying to buddy up to somebody. You're trying to butter them up. Like we have all these terms. And you're not trying to do that. You're trying to find genuine things that you like in this person. And then you tell them that, So like if you really like someone's shirt, you tell them that. But you don't tell them, "Oh, I like your shirt," and you don't actually like your shirt. Like that's flattery. And everybody hates that. Everybody hates flattery. People like appreciation. We want to be appreciated as human beings. It makes sense. Lesson 3, in order to influence people, you must bait the hook with the thing the fish wants. Identify what people are interested in and what their goals are. He makes a really good point here. He talks about like, if you're trying to get a specific thing out of a business or a service or something, and you're like writing a letter to them, or you're trying to convince like another party, like another person, another organization, if you're trying to convince them to work with you and do stuff, you need to make it really clear at the beginning what they're getting out of it. Like they don't care what you need. They want to know what they're going to get out of it. And that is so true. Like it's such a valid and it's such a correct assumption that, we have our best self-interests at heart initially, and we don't really care what the other person's going to get out of it. A lot of the times, like our interactions with people are mutually beneficial, but you don't never lead with what you want out of it. So you never would like if I wanted to buy a helicopter, and I wanted to like trade a car for it or something. Like I didn't want to pay in money. This is like a totally random example, by the way. So I want to buy this helicopter and I want to trade my sports car for this helicopter. I'm not going to say like, hey, like I really want this helicopter so that I can go travel and I can fly across Canada and I can do what I want. No, how you would do it is you would say, hey, like you clearly need this amazing sports car. Like it's going to, revolutionize your business. It's going to make you look so good. People are going to be so obsessed with you. And so, if you want this sports car, I want to trade the helicopter for it. And so you always lead with what the other person wants and what's in it for them, because nobody cares about what you're getting out of it. And I think a lot of people really do fall into this problem. Like I've seen people like try to go return a blouse or something, and they're like, I don't like the blouse. Whereas like, if you switch that interaction and you're trying to like see it from the other person's perspective, you're going to more effectively negotiate on your behalf. So again, I really like that. And I was like, that was really good. Yeah, people are not interested in your problems or inconveniences. They're only interested in their goals and how to expedite their interests. Use this information to tailor your communication and interaction with people to influence them. So like he basically says, he's like, I'm not a pessimist. Like I do think people are great, but they are self-interested. And in order to make your point come across better, you need to make sure they understand what is in it for them. And that has to be the first thing that you say. Don't bother like saying like, I have been so frustrated with the service that you have provided, blah, blah, blah. No, you say something like, I would really like to streamline your process and make your customer service appreciation that much better. And so that's why I need you to be able to deliver these things on time every single day, so that, your efficiencies are quadrupled and my satisfaction is going to be way higher. So you need to like flip the coin and talk about it from the perspective that they're going to be interested in. There's no point trying to like say like, I hate your service, like it's so bad. Like you're not going to achieve anything. Like they're just going to be like, okay, cool, bye. So there's another thing. Okay, yes, another one was self-expression is the dominant tendency of the human being. We all want to be ourselves. We all want to express a specific identity. And so if you can use that in order to create a connection with somebody or with a business or however you need to, like everybody just wants to feel heard and seen. People love it when you call them by name. They love it when you remember them. Those kinds of things mean a lot to people, especially in our day and age where like you see like hundreds of people a day and you just don't remember any of them. So like even just like saying, oh, like, thank you so much, Mary. Like, I really appreciate that. Like, thank you. Those kinds of things really do enhance your quality of life, and they do help you influence people and make friends and this kind of stuff. So like, I really can't recommend this book more. I know I'm just touching on a few bits and pieces of it, but there is so much in this book and I can't like do it justice in a 15-minute video. So if you enjoy it, please go check it out. Yeah. Okay. So, oh yeah, there's a great quote. I don't remember who said it in the book, but talk to people about themselves and they will listen to you for hours. And so if you can find what someone is interested in, and usually it's themselves, people really love listening about themselves. I remember reading about this thing that when Donald Trump was in the White House, he wouldn't read the daily briefing that he would receive in the mornings. And so what his staff realized is that if they put his name into the daily briefing, a lot of in like places, and like mentioned him throughout his own daily briefing, he was far more likely to read it and be like interested and actively like kept up to date with what was going on in the country. Um, and I can tell you, like that's not like again, I'm very apolitical. Like I don't care. And I can tell you honestly, like if somebody was giving me a daily briefing, and my name was in it all the time, I would read it. I would absolutely be reading it. I'd be like, oh, that's interesting. Oh my gosh. And I'm sure anyone would be, like Republican, Democrat, like liberal, conservative, whatever. We're interested in ourselves. It's just a fact of life. So that's not a dig to anybody, but I just think that's really interesting. Like people will listen to themselves for hours. So yeah. One of the final things he says is you can't win an argument. Nobody ever wins an argument. And I really like this. It's kind of like that thing of like nobody ever wins a war. There's always like casualties. There's always like people who are upset. There's always broken situations. And so like that's really true. Like if you think you're gonna win an argument, you're not. You're just not. Like even if you come out victorious, you have had to sacrifice certain things. You may have said things that you wish you took back. The other person now has resentment, and so you haven't won that thing truly. And so nobody ever wins an argument, just like nobody ever wins a war. So I thought that was good because that's true. And then there were a bunch of lessons, and I've said some of them, but lesson 7, which I think was the last one, is let the other person feel that the idea is theirs to begin with. So he uses this in terms of like, he talks about like his son, and like his son wasn't wanting to go to bed on time or whatever. And so he would like sort of flip the script and just be like, well, like big boys are always going to bed like at a good time. And, if they want to get big and strong and be able to like not be bullied and all this stuff, like they go to bed on time. And so his son was like motivated to go to bed, and like kind of his son essentially like thought that like going to bed at a good time was his idea. He's like, well, I want to be big and strong, so I need to go to bed early. And it's just a little kid, right? Like, so it's not like malicious manipulation. Like it's just giving somebody the idea, and then they're like, oh, that's such a good idea. That's my idea. I came up with that. And that's way more powerful than trying to convince somebody that you're correct or you have a good idea. And I just think that's such a human thing, like if you can convince somebody that like it's their idea, they're going to follow that the whole way through. Like it's like it is sneaky, but like, again, as long as you're not using these tactics and these techniques for like malice, then what's the problem? So yeah, again, really great book. I can't recommend it enough. I thought it was super influential and super interesting. Clearly it has a big impact. There's millions of people who like took his course when he was like, I don't know if he's still alive or not. I should have checked that before I started this video. But yeah, millions of people took his course. Like they've applied it to their businesses, to their daily lives, to all kinds of things. And I think it's really relevant in today's world. I think trying to win friends and trying to like figure out the motives of human beings is really like key. Like psychologists are rock stars nowadays. Like everybody's interested in how you do this stuff. So yeah, definitely give it a read. Let me know your thoughts when you do read it, or if you have already read it, or if you're rereading it right now. Let me know your favorite passages, if you have any fun quotes for me. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, I will talk to you guys tomorrow.